Hello to all our viewers online. The three of you.
28.
28 of you. We're doing lesson 10, second half. Okay, now who can recap from last week? We're just talking about a minor issue that doesn't affect you at all, doesn't affect your relationships, and doesn't rob you of anything. So you should be able to remember.
It was pride.
Ah, pride. Everybody's worst nightmare. That's right. So we're going to pick up at that point. But before we pick up, we're just going to have story time with Mel. Yes. Is it a bit dark here? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have stories. Like stories? I'll just chuck the light on over here.
Cool. All right. There once was a very happy young bird. He was a skylark. Skylark is a very beautiful bird with very big wings. They can fly very high. So he was a skylark. And this young skylark really loved worms. He was especially fond of worms. And one day he was flying in the sky and he looked down and he saw something quite interesting that made him quite curious. And when coming a bit closer, he could make out what it was. So what he saw was, there was this carriage that was being pulled along by two magpies, two birds. So these two birds were like horses carrying this carriage behind them. And this carriage was a black carriage with red windows and yellow wheels. And in front of the birds that were pulling this carriage was an old fox. And the old fox had a black jacket and red trousers and yellow shoes. And so the old fox was walking quite proudly and he was saying with a very loud voice, "Who will buy? Who will buy? I am selling in every kind of weather. I will give you juicy, delicious worms for skylark's feathers." And the skylark thought, wow, a chance to get a worm? Let's do this. The skylark went over to the old fox and said, "How much? How much? How much for worms?" And he said, 2 worms for 1 feather, and they are very delicious. They're the best worms you will find in the forest. And the young skylark said, "Are they fresh?" And the old fox said, "Absolutely, they are fresh. They were gathered fresh this morning. You will certainly be satisfied. No regrets guaranteed." And so the young skylark said, "Wow, this is too good to be true. So easy, so quick. I could do this now." And so the young skylark gave a painful tug of his wing. It was quite painful, but out came his feather. That was quick. Pain's gone quite quick. And he said, 2 worms, please." And the old fox was very happy and said, "Here you are." And the young skylark just finished the worms quickly, and he really enjoyed it. And going back to his family, he felt a little bit guilty about what he had done, but he soon forgot about it. And he was happy to realize that nobody noticed his lost feather. It was like that never happened. So he continued on. The following day, he went flying with his father in the sky. And his father was flying with him, and they were doing maneuvers. And the father said to the skylark, "My son, are we not the most blessed creatures? For with our wings, we can fly higher and higher to where we are closer to God than any other animal, many other animals could dare dream. These wings, they bring us closer and closer to God." And the young skylark was half listening, half not. And he said, yeah, I agree. But he was looking and trying to find, and from the distance, he could see the small black carriage walking along the same track, the same road. And he thought, "Oh, I've missed the coach. I've missed it. I've missed the coach. I missed the worms today." So he made a plan. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. The next day, he went to where he found the old fox and his coach. and he hid in the tall grass so he could see the road, and there would be no way that he would miss these juicy worms again. And so the old coach came by, and as the old coach was coming by, he stepped out and he said, here I am. I would like some worms. I have 2 feathers here, and can I have 4 worms? And so the old fox says, oh, absolutely, yes you can. And double thinking, the young skylark got excited and thought, how about 3? How about more? And so he gave a quick tug, and this time the feathers seemed to come out quite easily compared to the last time, and he quickly tugged the 2 more feathers. Before he knew it, he had 3 feathers in his hand. And he said, here you are, how much will these give me? And the old fox was very pleased, and he said, well, you have 6 worms, and here is 1 more just for good luck. And the skylark said, wow, this is a bargain. Look at this, I've got 7 worms for 3 feathers. And so he enjoyed the feast. And the young skylark became a regular customer. So he was often there. Every day he would arrive, and he would get worms for his feathers. And he continued, until one day the skylark realized that he made a terrible mistake. He wanted to fly into the warm sunshine, but he fell down to the earth like a stone. His wings had become worn and ragged and bare. They couldn't lift him up into the sky as they used to. And so he started to regret what he had done. And a thought came to his mind how he could remedy his wrong. He thought, I know what I'll do. I will dig for worms and sell worms for feathers. I can get these feathers back. So he diligently searched and worked and looked carefully, and he amassed a huge heap of worms. And he went over to the only place that he knew could possibly help him. He went over there with his worms, waiting for the coach. And the coach came by. And he stepped out onto the road, and he said, please, sir, I have all these worms. How many feathers for all these worms? And the old fox laughed without any mercy, without any pity, and said, worms for feathers are my business, not feathers for worms. Feathers for worms, not worms for feathers. And so the coach passed by, and the young skylark, cold and alone, died. And the birds buried him. And in the place that he is buried, skylarks fly over that place. And they sing a song to each other as they fly over that place where the foolish skylark is buried. And they say this, here lies a poor, foolish skylark. Hush your note, every bird that sings, for here is a wretched skylark who, for earthworms, sold his wings.
Charles Finney said that sin is the most expensive thing in the universe. So I have a question. What robs you of being able to fly high and get into the altitude and the warm sun? So how many feathers do you swap for worms? The worm of getting even, the worm of insisting on your rights, the worms of fighting for your rights, the worms of carrying an offence. How many worms does a young man pay to watch porn night after night, again and again, until his feathers pluck out quite easily and he barely feels the pain? How many of you have secret things, your go-tos that nobody knows about, and you pluck feathers quite regularly and quite easily, and yet you feel far from God, and you're quite beclouded, and you don't know how to get back? because you've not understood our greatest dilemma is the things that hide the best of God and rob the best of God. And it robs us from the best we could be and who we are, who God intends us to be. How can I put it? I want to talk to you a little briefly about the problem of evil. The problem of evil in the world and the problem of evil in the world. Someone said, okay, why doesn't God sort of stop all the evil people from doing all the evil thing? And that's the answer. Easy. Because he's decided he doesn't want to kill you yet. Because evil is in every single person. It's just that we have a very poor definition of evil. Evil is people worse than ourselves, no matter how bad we are. That's how they work in Long Bay. That's how they work in the worst of suburbs. That's how they work in the worst of places. That's how they work in your world. So, with the problem of evil, I think George MacDonald once said this. He said, George MacDonald is the guy that mentored C.S. Lewis. He's also the guy that mentored Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, if you're wondering. And he said that God is not bound over to punish evil. He's bound over to destroy evil. Think about it. Now that presents God with a dilemma if we want evil in ourselves. So ask yourself this question. Do you want evil in yourself, or do you want to get it out? And if you could redefine evil as selfishness and pride, how earnest are you in getting that out of yourself? Because God wants to destroy it. And if you want to keep it inside of yourself, what is he to do about that? What happens if you cross over the portals of eternity and there lies, you've kept evil in yourself and now it's cemented within you eternally? I said God would destroy, I think God intends to destroy evil and would if he could. But if evil is bound up in eternal beings, what does he do? Think about it. If evil is bound up in eternal beings, what does God do about that? What is his only option? Contain it. Contain it. With firm and permanent and eternal boundaries. So, if God wants to highlight the need for that to get out of you, how's he going to do that? By allowing the evil inside of you to enter into conflict with you. Now I'm going to run that one past you again. God is going to allow evil inside of you to come into conflict with you. When you enter conflict with another person, who do you think you're in conflict with? Think about it. You're angry at someone. You're really angry at them. They have made your life uncomfortable. They have violated your rights. They have done this. They have said that. They have not understood you. They've accused you of this. They're not appreciating you in some way. Whatever it is, you're angry with them. You're in conflict with them. You want to tell them what they're doing wrong. They must understand what they're doing wrong, and you must get that through to them because your world is threatened, you are threatened, and that cannot happen. So here you are communicating to them very, very strongly. And you're in conflict with them, or are you in conflict with pride within yourself? And isn't God trying to show you something when you're in conflict with pride within yourself? Isn't he highlighting your dilemma? So God is showing the evil within you by using the evil within someone else. Welcome to the world. Welcome to relationships. Welcome to the most fundamental dynamic that happens in relationship and governs so much of people's relationships. And if God gave them comfort in those relationships, is he a good God or a bad God? It's a bad God because he's lulling them into a false sense of security, knowing that the end is ultimately destruction and evil. So Conflict is one way that God tries to talk to you about evil inside of you that you're actually not concerned with. And that is a major issue. Most people, even Christians in their church and their religion, are mainly concerned about their comfort. They're not concerned about their pride. They're not concerned about their selfishness. They're concerned about other aspects of their life, but not that one. But for God, that's the biggie. For God, that's the one that has eternal consequence. For that's the one that relegates that person to knowing nothing of God except in a very external sense, even in their religion. Because he won't share himself with pride. He can't connect with something he's bound over to destroy. And if he's a loving God, he ought to destroy it because it is everything other than love, other than kindness, other than patience, other than joy, other than peace, other than long-suffering, other than mercy, other than forgiveness. It's evil. And he ought to hate it. And he ought to want to destroy it. And he ought to want you to set you free from it. And his first task is to communicate to you the massive issue it is to you and what it robs you of and how much it destroys you. It takes away your feathers. It stops you flying. It will bury you. So let's just get one person up and let's look at where conflict, what God is trying to say to a person through conflict, but what happens if they respond to God the way that God wants to when he's trying to show them. So when you go into conflict with someone, God is trying to speak. But if you had ears to hear, the most beautiful thing starts to happen in your life. Now, Rick, you're going to have to hold that for Hannah. Yeah. She's going to have to get up now.
That's what I'm trying to tell him. That might be easier. Cool.
Hello. I don't know a couple of people, but I'm Hannah. I wanted to share with you guys a point in my life where I reached massive failure in relationship and I experienced enough conflict to fill this room. And God really did something amazing with it. So this was happening about maybe 2 years ago, roughly. I was living at home with my mum, and it was just us in this house, of course. So at the time I thought I was doing really well. I was in church. I shared a little bit about this last time I spoke, but basically I was in church and I was doing a lot of stuff. So I was a youth leader, I led a youth life group, I assisted in an adult life group, I was discipling a handful of girls with Callie, I was being discipled by Callie, and basically every day of the week, every night of the week was filled up with something church-related, God-related. So I thought, yes, I'm doing so well, I'm doing the work of God, He must be so proud of me. So I had this idea that I was doing really well. However, there was one area in my life where it was horrible, and that was home with my mum. So we've always been close growing up, but in amongst the years of doing good work for the Lord, there was so much conflict and butting heads. For a number of reasons. We would fight over the smallest things, like one time we fought about how I laid some nachos. She didn't think I did it right, so of course we had a massive argument. Callie would remember this. We had a massive argument about it. So we would argue about little things, but we all know that when we argue about little things, it's, indicating something bigger happening. So I think the main thing that we were arguing about, the big picture behind it, was that I was never home, that I didn't really know my mother that well because I wasn't spending time with her. And as a young female and a high feeler, I was receiving all of her demanding me to be home as, you're being so selfish with your time and you're being a brat, like you're never home, you don't vacuum, you don't do your own washing. So I was receiving this as all very much like, she's trying to tell me what to do. Like, I'm an adult now. I can definitely rule my own life. And I was doing my life well. I was serving the Lord. So I was very much against. I didn't receive what she said as truth and kind of just kept going on in my own way, thinking it was the right thing, thinking that I was right and that I was in the right and she was in the wrong. So in all of this conflict and with still serving with most of my days and most of my time, she actually came, we were talking or arguing, and she presented me with two options. First option was to keep doing what I was doing by serving a lot and discipling, but move out. And the second option was to stay home and change my life, change me. And I went into super duper high trauma, high feeler. Oh my gosh, she hates me, she's kicking me out, I'm homeless. I went super dramatic and really received it, like the lies and the identity that was just being attacked was that she didn't love me, that she hated me, that she couldn't stand living with me because I wasn't spending time with her and I was busy serving the Lord. I felt so persecuted and so like I was a martyr. And saying it now, I'm like, oh, that is ridiculous. So I packed a bag and I left. So I went to a friend's house for a couple of nights, and I remember telling one of my friends the next day at a youth thingy-majiggy that like my mum kicked me out the other night because I'm serving the Lord. Like I was super serious about it, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, are you okay? Like that's awful. What's wrong with your mother and all this stuff? And this was just feeding the idea that I was right and that she was wrong. So being quite young, being in some sort of trauma, I thought that I was quite lost and that I needed some advice of how to move on from the situation. So I remember meeting with Paul and Ross, seeking good counsel to see, I guess, the next step of how to continue doing what I was doing and move out of home pretty much. That was my agenda. But meeting with them, I guess for the first time it was pointed out to me that this might be failure, that I might be in the wrong, that the way that I chose to live my life was neglecting something very important and very close to the heart of God. And I'm going to reference John 15 where Jesus is talking and is like, do you love me? And people are like, oh, do you know? And he's like, then you'll obey me. And during this time, it was really highlighted to me that the commandment of honoring my parents I considered insignificant and secondary, whereas he was showing me through these circumstances that it is still very important to the Lord, regardless what I thought I was doing that was really well. I was ignoring this big part, this commandment that God had given us to honor our parents, which then indicated that I wasn't loving him at the full capacity of what I should and what I wanted to. So being made aware of this was a bit like a slap in the face, because I had never considered that perhaps I was in the wrong and that perhaps God didn't want me to move out and perhaps he didn't want me to exile my mother and be a soldier of the kingdom, just leaving a trail of pain behind me with my family. And I realized, like, if he wants us to honor our parents, I wasn't doing that, but that's in his heart. I was far away from him. I was far away from his heart and his will and his love for me. And I didn't look like him. I was very selfish because I was focused on my own agenda, which was accepted as good and, like, good on you, like, keep going with what you're doing, just, forsake the family in a sense. So I guess really broke me to realize that I didn't look like God and that I wasn't seeing what he was seeing. So from that place, I really had to stop, acknowledge that this was failure, that he had allowed me to fall on my face so that he could be the one to pick me up, show me the truth, and lead me, and I could follow him. So I repented to the Lord, and I just naturally knew what I had to do. So I went home, and I was terrified because I thought that Mum would reject me, that she would say like, oh, you had your chance, like get out, kind of thing. So I was really scared. So I really needed Jesus with me to have the courage and the bravery to approach my mum and, I guess, lay down my rights and lay down my pride. And I needed Jesus and his humility to not engage in conflicts after in this conversation. So I was very scared, but he was with me. So I apologized to my mum for, I guess, being so proud and selfish and not considering her and dishonoring her, and by doing that, disobeying the Lord. And there was an instant shift in me in doing that, I think, by acknowledging the failure and repenting before the Lord, and actually following that with actions with my relationship with Mum. There was a really big shift in my heart, and I realized, okay, like, I'm in the will of God, this is what he wants me to do, and I can see before my eyes that this situation, while it was horrible, I can see before my eyes that my mum is honoured now because I was humble enough to say sorry. So basically, I reached massive failure, and I hurt my family, I hurt my mother by being so caught up in my own agenda and ignoring what the Lord wanted to do there in that season. I hit that failure in conflict, but once he made me aware of it, I think I was quick to respond to him because I knew he loves me, and I knew that he also loved my mum and that he wanted our highest good. So there was that quick transformation that came with obeying the Lord, you know? Was there anything else that...
just like, obviously this was like an instantaneous transformation. You never had any problems with pride and conflict again, yeah?
Totally. No. I'm being facetious. No, definitely. There's been many conflicts after that. It was actually quite a thorn in my side for a long time. Like, meeting Kaylee every week, I'd be like, so this is the argument we had this week. And we'd flush it out. But I guess because of the big incident, he already put that resolution in me and that clarity of, no, like, Hannah, like, honor your parents, love, lay down your rights, die. Like, it's not about you, Hannah. Like, it's about God, and it's about how he needs to be glorified in this, and how my whole life is just about trying to, or becoming like Jesus and being Jesus to my family. There was a lot of death. It was very uncomfortable at times, but...
So when you started to yield your rights, humble yourself, give up your pride, you made a commitment, I'm going that way, this is the path to life, this is what obedience to the Lord looks like, I want to be like him. And then the constant conflict with your mum and her pride calling out your pride, how did your relationship with pride within yourself, how did that slowly shift? Did you get more and more sick of it, or you found yourself giving over quicker? Or was it just slowly but surely it just started to lose its power? How was it for you?
Yeah, well, I think the more and more that it occurred and the more and more that we fought, the quicker I'd be to turn to God about it. Like, in the beginning, it was very fresh, this journey of laying down rights and stuff. So I turned to Callie and be like, oh, Callie, this happened. But the more it happens, the more I learn to turn to God about it and have him as a source. so naturally through that shift, fighting, it did lose its power because my pride was constantly being kept track of by the Lord. So I guess, yeah, my emotions as well wasn't as much.
So did you find yourself humbling yourself and coming back and putting things right?
Yeah.
And did you find that you would blow it, you'd go away, get convicted, go back and put it right? And the distance from when you would just go into that failure or that pride to when you put it back, did that start to shorten?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously I'm not perfect and our relationship isn't perfect, but now it's very much, in a way, like second nature to be like, okay, like, lay down my rights. It's not about me. How's my mum?
Did you find like you had more peace?
Yeah.
Could be less ruffled by other people too?
Yeah. I used to be very anxious around my mum or around family in general, and I guess be really, really sensitive and feel a lot of rejection. Whereas the more time, I guess, he allowed me to fail and I would turn to him and we'd reconcile, the more that happened, the less fragile I would be.
So I find this part really interesting because we know that identity and pride are very much linked. You don't get one without the other. And as Hannah started to humble herself, did you pick it? As she started to humble herself, she started getting grace from the Lord, and her identity messages wouldn't flare up as much. They were more subdued. Some people just try and deal with their identity by just trying to change the message. But the fact is we need grace from the Lord to change it.
Yeah.
And humility is still the best way to deal with identity.
Because even, like it started, like even when Mum didn't come to the party of like humility or, you know.
She was meant to, huh? I mean,
yeah,
we're so great in humbling ourselves, surely it's their turn now.
Yeah, I remember once I'd like go to her and I'd be saying sorry for something and she'd be like, you know, like still telling me off about it. I'm like, Mom, I'm being humble here. Like, come on. Like, I'm so sorry. You have to say sorry too. I engaged in that argument. But,
back into pride. How cool is that?
Yeah, that was my question. Like, you are being humble, and when you're humble towards your family, but you don't get the humble back. And then so they're coming at you with more conflict because they're like, well, you're not normally like this. Like, what's going on? Well, we'll try a different door. We'll try something else, or there's conflict in the home that you're not a part of. You're not a part of the conflict. There's other people in the house that are conflicting, but they're trying to drag you into their conflict. But you're like, no, I'm just humble here. Like, I'm not involved in this.
If there's evil within us, there's evil in another person to draw it out. And eventually, at first, we like peace and we like harmony, and we often find ourselves reconciling because we like the grace, we do, and we also like the peace that comes with it. But I think it takes time for us to realise what we really want and what God wants, and that is to become like Him, to be done with evil within ourselves altogether. And when we come to that clarity, we don't need other people around us to change as much as we used to.
Okay.
And we want to change ourselves, and they can stay that way. We can leave them with God, and that's okay. We don't need... we're still fighting for our rights when we want that response.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
And often we think we're humbling ourselves, but these little things show us what's really going on.
Because I was like, God, why isn't this working? Like, here I am humble and...
It's working. That's
I'm
right.
like...
You might try a different angle.
Why aren't they humbling? Like, what's going on? Like,
It's just not fair.
Well, it wasn't that it wasn't fair. I just expected a different reaction.
Yeah, I get it.
I expected, like, I guess I had expectations that I didn't realise that I probably shouldn't have put expectations on other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting, okay, well, I'm humbling myself and what's my current one right now? Why? I'm saying sorry and...
This is
I'm
all
actually
about...
mean I'm sorry and let's just leave it. Like,
Yeah.
Why are you still trying to drive me crazy?
I think because really it's all about ending evil within ourselves.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the issue we have is evil within ourselves. And the only good that God recognises is the chosen good. As much as the grace of God is upon our lives, have you noticed God commands all men everywhere to repent? It's a permanent command in the atmosphere. And the only executioner of evil within ourselves should be us. By choice.
Humbling yourself is a very delicate subject to get on to, because if you need to tell somebody that you're being humble, that's not really being humble. It's like telling somebody, I've cleaned the floor, but come over here, I've cleaned the floor. They can see you clean the floor.
That's
you don't
right.
need to point out that you cleaned the floor. They just know automatically
Correct.
the floor is clean. So you don't need to tell somebody that you're being humble.
No.
Being humble actually comes across as being humble. So you don't really
It's just
point that out.
It's just doing, it's wanting to please the Lord in secret and let Him reward in any way He wants.
Because you're forcing that to happen. And as long as you keep forcing that,
I think, well, now we're getting into the very core teachings of our Master. Thanks, Anne. That's good, eh? That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was excellent. Matthew 5, 6 and 7 are commonly regarded as the core teachings of Jesus Christ, the highest ethical teachings known to man, without a doubt. And I'm so glad that the Lord only gave them to us as good suggestions not to be followed. Because, seriously, who could do that, honestly? They're ideals. Ideals are meant to be fallen short of, so why bother? Anybody picking up on my not telling the truth bit? Jesus said, do not resist an evil person. Do not resist a proud person. Do not resist a selfish person. He said, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil by doing good. In the doing, there's choice. It's not passive. I had a situation today. Yesterday, I lost my peace, went into a business-like mode, and told this person in a very bullish way what they were doing wrong and what they had to do right, because I was being affected. It was only a small amount of money. It wasn't huge. It was $1,500, but my rights were being violated. And so I didn't treat them well. And when I got off the phone, guess who wanted to have a conversation with me? No, it wasn't. Tap, 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 tap. Yes, about that. Yeah, Rosie came, it was beautiful. There's very little gap between Ros and Scripture. And anyway, and all night long, and I went straight in the morning. If you know what the Lord wants to talk to you about, can I make a suggestion? Go to the parts in the Bible that talk about it so He can speak louder. So I went straight to Matthew 6, straight to Romans 12. These are the go-tos in the Bible. These are the places you should know so well. That's if you have a problem with pride. If you don't, you don't need these. There's good to know. Yeah, mental note. Note to self. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That's in end of Romans 12. Romans 12 is just so chock-a-block at the end of it. There's there's 30 verbs about doing good. You've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. Now, an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth is just a calling out for justice. It's just a calling out for you to defend your own rights and stick up for your own rights, isn't it? To claim your own rights. Isn't that an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth? Isn't it people should consider you? Sorry? What you deserve in your own eyes, and probably legitimately. My beef was fully right. Do you know what I mean? I was being I was being ripped off by people that were full on blatantly lying. You know what I mean? There was no misunderstanding. It was blatant. And so it says, you've heard that it said, everybody lives this way, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person, because they're calling evil out of you. And you've got to work out what your relationship with evil is going to be. And I'm using that word evil tonight a lot, because where did evil come from? It came from the devil. Where did it come from within him? It's when he insisted on his rights. I will ascend to the heavens. I will have people focus on me. I will have everything wrapped around me. I want people to notice, and what goes to God, I really want to come to me. Where him being the centre, I want to be the centre. That is the source of pure evil. And you have to work out whether you want that in you or not. That is the big question. And God presents circumstances to revisit that question again and again and again, unless you're hearing some other dialogue or you've invented some other religion that doesn't even have that in it. So, but therefore, God introduces you to conflict. God introduces you to failure. And God, if you've invented a religion that has no answer to this, then he will let your religion fail. And that is a really good thing. And all of us are constantly trying to reinvent a religion to move away from this, or to not find grace and answers for this. But the funny thing is, when there is grace and answers, it's the most beautiful redemption you ever experience in your entire life. You just wonder where on earth you've been your entire life when you discover it. So, and how should you address it? Well, if you realise that someone has got an issue with you, stop your religion. Stop it. Leave your gift where? At the altar. Why the altar? It's right. It's a place of sacrifice, a place of intimacy, it's a place of connection, a place of reality, a place of genuine atonement and redemption. Stop right there. You go back, and first be reconciled with this person, then come and give your gift, because you already have. So this morning, I sent a text, sent an email. I said, you can have the money, and here's some more. And when I did that, it had nothing to do with justice. It had nothing to do with eye for eye. It had to do with my relationship with evil inside of myself. And I could have just said, well, you can have the money. I won't fight for my rights. You can take what you want. I added some extra because I wanted to buy my own freedom. And I did. And that little bit extra was the last turning of the key that opened the door of my own prison. I overcame evil, my own evil, by doing good. Not by letting wrong be done to me. There's a difference. So now let's have a sticky beak, shall we? Since Hannah raised the issue of the family, should we ask these questions? These are horrible questions. You ready for them? Okay. These are what you're meant to ask the people in your own home if you were game, but give them $1,000 and tell them to keep it if you give them any trouble with these questions. You ask them, in my home, am I a giver or am I a taker? Do I pour my life out, or do I do what pleases me? Good question. What about this one? I just lost my page. It must have been the sign. Here we are. I have lost it. Hey? That'll do. I'm miles off. Thanks. Do you struggle to humble yourself? In conflict, are you first or second to reconcile? Are you filled with the strength of your own opinions? Do they come out quick? Do you have a lot of judgments on people quickly? Do you live selfishly in the home? How often do you clean up after yourself and others? Do you let yourself be wrong? How do you respond when you're corrected? When you're corrected, how do you respond? Do you fight back? Fire back? How often do you accuse back when you are challenged? Do you think your life impacts other people that you live with in a life-giving way or in a draining way? Are you like a little ray of sunshine, or are you like a little cloud coming around that people think, I just might go in the next room? And here's the hardest one of all, I think. Is your life all about you? Just a few quick questions. And as you get older, if you don't address these things, guess what? They multiply. Do you know how they multiply? They're called children. They multiply. The stuff that you don't deal with, you're all young, so I can tell you this. The stuff, you like that? The stuff that you don't deal with when it comes to the matters of the heart, you will reproduce that in another person. And in God's economy, they're called mirrors. That when they rebel, when they react, it's funny, Rosie and I would deal with other family, husband or a husband in the presence of the children. Guess what you found? The children disrespected her. They rebelled against her. They would challenge her. And they were actually being a mirror. But her issues that she wanted God to fix wasn't herself. She was praying that God would fix who? The children. And she could not see the mirror that she herself had made for herself. Most of marriage is just people making mirrors for each other, between each other. Logs and splinters, that's all it is. So, when people who live this way and have this stuff within them, unchallenged, and they don't desire any freedom or redemption or salvation from it, but actually want to keep it in their life, want to live out of it, when they discover scriptural and biblical truth, guess what happens? Mystery, Babylon, the harlot is made right there. What happens is they develop what we call a religious spirit. And with this, the biggest cocktail is selfishness, pride, and religious knowledge is what creates a religious spirit. Because it's all about God, it's surrounding God. I mean, Hannah described it beautiful. She thought that she was doing really well in her religion, yes? The reality was her relationships were failing. That's one of the hallmarks of a religious spirit. Now, by the way, before you think I'm picking on Hannah, every single one of us in this room have been this. We go in and out of this. So it's like you can't just think, oh, yes, it's so-and-so. Oh, boy, somebody needs to tell so-and-so what a religious spirit they are. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that. As soon as you start doing that, I mean, Hannah, I bet you, when Hannah was doing so well in youth leading and stuff like that, she was looking at the ones that she was discipling and she was seeing the flaws in them and she was wishing that she could point out what? Their pride, where they're failing, where they're doing it wrong. Help them do it right. True or false?
True.
True. Every one of us are like this. We just can't see our own stuff. And we get a lot of zeal and we get a lot of knowledge and we mix it in. And it's all about God in the peripheral. It's God here, God there, truth here, truth there. But the reality is, it's actually all about us. And it has lots of different forms. But I think it's time for a cup of tea, yes? Yes.